Imagine your empire collapsing, your enemies closing in from all sides, your cities burning and your people starving, and then from the brink of total destruction you claw your way back. This is not a legend. This actually happened. Today we're diving into what might be the greatest comeback in world history, the resurrection of the Eastern Roman Empire under one man, Heraclius. But to understand how insane this comeback really was, we have to start at the very bottom. And I mean, rock bottom. The Roman Emperor Maurice is in charge of what's left of the Eastern Roman Empire, also called the Byzantine Empire. And while the West has long since fallen, Maurice is hanging on. Barely after years of warfare, his army finally wins a hard-fought victory against Slavic invaders in the Balkans. You'd think this would be cause for celebration. But Maurice, in his infinite wisdom, has a different idea. Instead of letting his exhausted troops come home, Maurice orders them to stay in the freezing Balkans for winter to save money. The troops understandably are not thrilled. In fact, they mutiny. They march back to Constantinople, and under the leadership of an ambitious officer named Phocas, they overthrow the emperor. What happens next is brutal. Maurice and his entire family, including his sons, are captured and publicly executed. Phocas declares himself emperor. And almost immediately things go downhill. Fast Phocas rules with a mixture of insecurity, paranoia, and murder. Anyone who questions his authority is imprisoned, tortured, or killed. He basically speedruns, becoming one of the worst emperors in Roman history. The empire starts to fall apart, but Phocas has no idea what's coming next. Now here's where it gets even worse. You see, a few years earlier, Maurice had helped a Persian king, Khosrow II, reclaim his throne after a coup. This rare act of diplomacy ended a long and bloody conflict between the Romans and Persians. Khosrow saw Maurice not just as an ally, but as a friend. So when he hears that Maurice has been murdered by this Phocas guy, well, let's just say Khosrow is not cool with it. Khosrow declares war. Not just out of revenge, but because, frankly, Phocas is weak. He sends his top general Sharbaraz to lead the invasion. And let's just say, this guy knows what he's doing. Cities begin to fall one by one. The Persians plow through Byzantine territory like it's open farmland. Meanwhile, Phocas is too busy executing people to stop them. By 608 CE, the situation is catastrophic. The Slavs are raiding the Balkans. The Persians control Syria and Mesopotamia. Roman defenses are collapsing. The people are terrified, and Phocas is still on the throne. The empire is dying, and its people are praying for a miracle. And then, from the distant provinces of North Africa, comes hope. A young man named Heraclius, son of the exarch governor of Carthage, has had enough. He rallies an army, boards ships, and sails for Constantinople, not just to fight Phocas, but to save the empire. When Heraclius arrives at Constantinople in 610 CE, the people welcome him with open arms. Even Phocas's own guards betray him and drag him out of the palace. Heraclius looks at the fallen tyrant and asks, "Is this how you ruled the empire?" Phocas growls back, "Will you rule it any better?" Spoiler. Yes, he will. When Heraclius takes the throne in 610 CE, he inherits more of a corpse than a country. The economy is in ruins, the army is shattered, and the provinces are vanishing one by one, but Heraclius is calm, focused, determined, because he knows this isn't just a political crisis, it's an existential one. If he fails, Rome dies, for good. Just 2 years later, in 614, the unthinkable happens. The Persians sack Jerusalem. It's a religious and psychological catastrophe. Tens of thousands of Christians are killed, churches are burned, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is destroyed, and worst of all, the Persians take the most sacred relic in Christendom, the true cross. The dominoes keep falling. Syria, Palestine, and most of Egypt are conquered. The Persians push deep into Anatolia, the very heartland of the empire. By 617, they're just a short march away from Constantinople itself. At this point, even Heraclius begins to consider giving up. He draws up plans to move the capital away from Constantinople to Carthage in North Africa, where it might be safer. After all, the empire has been ruled from Africa before, why not again? But before he can leave, the Patriarch of Constantinople begs him to stay. The people still believe in him, and more importantly, they have nowhere else to go. Heraclius looks around at the starving, terrified people, and makes his decision. He will not run. If Rome is to fall, it will fall with him on the front lines. He declares war on Persia. Real war. No more defense. This time the Romans will strike back, but talk is cheap. War is not Heraclius, orders all gold and silver in Constantinople, even from churches, to be melted down to pay for a new army. Even his wife donates her jewelry. The entire empire becomes a war machine. Everyone contributes. Everyone has skin in the game. Heraclius knows he's no military genius yet. So he turns to the writings of Emperor Maurice, the very man who was murdered years earlier. Maurice's Strategicon is a military textbook, and Heraclius studies it like gospel. He trains with his men, leads drills, learns logistics, and transforms a broken army into a disciplined force. He doesn't have much, but he has one last legion, one last shot. His soldiers know what's at stake when Heraclius tells them, "You are the last defenders of Rome." They swear to follow him to the end. On April 4th, 622 CE. Heraclius leaves Constantinople with his army. He turns to look at the city walls, perhaps for the last time. Then he raises an icon of Christ, takes a deep breath, and marches to war. Heraclius begins his campaign by marching east into Anatolia, deep into Persian-occupied territory. The stakes total. He has no backup army, no reinforcements, no second chance. If he loses a single battle, the war and the empire is over. The first test comes fast. Persian general Sharbaraz, the same man who took Jerusalem, marches west to crush Heraclius. But this isn't the shattered Roman army he remembers. Heraclius's troops are organized, disciplined. They move with speed, strike with precision, and for the first time in years they win. Sharbaraz is stunned. His army breaks. He retreats. Now the Persian king himself, Khosrow Seku, gets involved. He's no warrior, but he's desperate to end this upstart emperor. So he personally leads a royal army to meet Heraclius. For Khosrow, it's about legacy. If he wins here, he becomes the king who destroyed Rome. The two sides clash at the town of Ganzak, and incredibly Heraclius wins. He smashes Khosrow's forces. The king flees the field in shame. Then Heraclius marches to a nearby Zoroastrian fire temple, one of the holiest sites in Persia, and he burns it to the ground. A brutal message: "You took Jerusalem. This is payback." In 625, Heraclius strikes again, this time under the cover of night. His target, Sharbaraz's new camp, his timing perfect. The Romans attack in the dark, catching the Persians off guard. Legend says Sharbaraz was naked when it started and barely escaped with his life. The next day, the Persians regroup at the Sarus River, guarding a bridge. They think they can hold it. But Heraclius personally leads the charge. Arrows fly. Soldiers fall. But the Romans don't stop. They storm the bridge straight into enemy fire and send the Persians fleeing again. But while Heraclius wins abroad, disaster brews at home. Sharbaraz again sneaks into Europe and surrounds Constantinople. He joins forces with 80,000 Slavs and Avars to lay siege to the city from all sides. Heraclius gets the news and hesitates. If he runs home, he'll lose everything he's gained. But if he doesn't, Constantinople might fall. What does he choose? Heraclius makes the most dangerous gamble of his reign. He does nothing. He leaves the city in God's hands. If this is truly the city of God, he says, then he will defend it. In July 626, the siege begins. Persian forces attack from the east. Slavs and Avars strike from the north. But the walls of Constantinople hold. For a full month, the city endures wave after wave of attack, and when it's over, the defenders win. The people parade an icon of the Virgin Mary through the streets convinced she protected them. It's a victory without Heraclius, but because of him. Furious at the defeat, Khosrow lashes out. He writes a letter ordering the execution of Sharbaraz. But Heraclius intercepts the letter, adds the names of 400 more Persian officers to the list, and then secretly sends it to Sharbaraz himself. Sharbaraz is outraged. After 10 years of loyal service, this is his reward. He reads the letter to his army. "This is what your king thinks of you," he tells them. And just like that, they walk away. Persia's largest and best army leaves the war. Heraclius now stands at the edge of victory. The Persian armies are in retreat. Sharbaraz has defected. Khosrow is isolated. But there's one problem. Winter is coming. His soldiers are tired. Supplies are running low. The smart move is to rest, regroup, and wait until spring. But Heraclius isn't interested in being smart. He's interested in ending the war now, and so in December of 627 CE, he launches the most dangerous campaign of his life. The Roman army marches deeper into Mesopotamia, into enemy territory with no backup and no retreat. Frostbite, hunger, exhaustion, the legions suffer, but Heraclius keeps them moving. One last battle, he tells them, and we go home as heroes. December 12th, 627 CE. Heraclius reaches the plains near Nineveh, the ruins of an ancient Assyrian capital. A Persian army under General Rhazades blocks the way. Heraclius sets a trap. He fakes a retreat, drawing the Persians out of position. Then he turns and attacks with everything he's got. In the middle of the chaos, Rhazades calls out to Heraclius, "Face me in single combat." The Roman emperor doesn't hesitate. He rides out sword in hand, and with one clean strike, he cuts the Persian general down. 2 more warriors charge him. Heraclius kills them too. Without their commander, the Persian army panics. The Romans press the attack. Thousands of Persians fall. Thousands more run. It's a rout. Heraclius marches to the Persian royal estate at Dastagerd, just outside the capital, and burns it to the ground. Heraclius offers peace. "Return the lands you stole," he writes to Khosrow, "and I'll spare what's left." But Khosrow refuses. He's lost everything but refuses to admit defeat. And this would be the last mistake of his life inside the Persian Empire. The nobles have had enough. Khosrow's son, Kavad, leads a coup. Khosrow is thrown in prison and then executed. The mighty king of Persia dies not in battle, but in chains, betrayed by his own court. Kavad II wastes no time. He signs a treaty with Heraclius. Palestine, Syria, Mesopotamia, all Roman. Again, the true cross looted from Jerusalem is returned. The war is over in 629 CE. Heraclius returns to Constantinople. The people flood the streets crying, cheering, bowing before their emperor. He marches through the gates with his soldiers behind him, battered but victorious. He had done the impossible. In 10 years, he reversed a total collapse and saved the Eastern Roman Empire. Heraclius had won, but the empire he saved was exhausted. Persia collapsed into civil war, and both empires, shattered by a decade of conflict, would soon face a new storm rising from the Arabian desert. But that's another story. This story is about how one man refused to let a 1,000-year empire die. About how faith, will, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds bought the Romans one last golden hour. Heraclius, the last Roman hero.